Greetings, all. Happy solstice. Oh my goodness. We made it. We made it to the days are going to start getting lighter now. Even though it's wintertime, it's going to start getting lighter every day. That is so exciting. I'm so happy to hear that. All right. So happy solstice. Welcome to today's Female Reverence Sunday, number 10. So I went to a performance this evening, and when I was younger, I was pretty much obsessed with ballet. So today, our female reverence is going to be around women in ballet and ballet in general. And we're going to go into what we see in society, and also we're going to go into the melanated aspect of this particular um, performative theater, so to speak. So, one of the things that I knew growing up around ballet is I'm just going to give you what I saw as a kid. So, I saw these very thin, very kind of what society considers beautiful, typically pale women performing this amazing dance, okay, and the music along with it. Then, as I got older and actually took ballet and then went into performing arts in college, which also met with my anthropology studies, I learned so much around ballet. So, I'm going to say this first. If you know a ballerina, or anybody who has studied ballet for quite some time, they are they are athletes to the hilt. Their flexibility and their stamina is, I think, incomparable to what people consider regular sports, which would be like running, basketball, football, those types of things. And if you don't know, in certain football teachings, they do have ballerinas who teach them flexibility and stretching, especially for the kickers, if you didn't know that. But they are very strong and very muscular. Okay. Now, if you don't know, there's some famous. So I looked up, I have my own people that I liked and I was aware of, but I wanted to bring in several ballerinas that were famous. So I went to see the Nutcracker. The Nutcracker is greetings. Hi, 3 Nikki B. Thanks for being here. I went to see the Nutcracker, and there's actually a whole story behind the guy who came up with the music and created the dance, so to speak. But there have been stories and there have been ballerinas that have left ballet after many years of being famous because of how women were treated. So, if you don't know, especially when I was growing up, so we'll say the late 70s, early 80s, it was kind of a trend to be very, very thin, overworked, overperformed, over rehearsed. There were many stories of body dysmorphia because you were expected to be very, very thin to be a ballerina. And sometimes, and commonly, drug addiction because you would need to perform, but you couldn't eat. And also what happens with the body. So one of the famous stances in ballet is the turnout, where you're standing straight, but your feet are pointed in the opposite direction, like this, instead of straight ahead. And over time, they've learned that this will affect the body, especially when they get older. So not only the point shoes, but just the certain positions the body would have to be in. So the hips could be harmed, and also the feet. There was a lot of bruising, a lot of, I mean, it was almost like a, this is why I titled, well, I didn't title this, but the description says a artistic form of patriarchy, because first of all, okay, so we'll talk a little bit about the history of ballet. So the history of ballet started in nobility, so to speak, within the kings and queens courts. And if you watched anything, if you've watched the show, oh, now I'm drawing a blank. But if you watched any classical period movies where they have the dancing in the ballroom, well, they're wearing tiny heels. Usually the men and the women are wearing tiny heels, and they do slow steps to classical music and then do the little turns. So that got elevated. So it started within nobility, is a better word to say. And just to clarify, we're learning that a lot of the nobility that we've been told about as being more pale were actually not. They were melanated, and what we see around race and racism today didn't really exist back then. But who coined it was Louis the 14th. Louis the 14th really coined ballet and made it something institutional. It wasn't something that you could come and be communal with and dance with everybody to the music and enjoy the music in a very, kind of like choreographed way. He turned it into something that only certain people could learn, and he changed it to where he included those shoes. So I don't know if you know about the shoes, but the ballet shoes have almost what is like a very hardened cardboard. So it's light, but it's hard. And the idea is that you bend your toes like this so that kind of the top of your toes are balanced within the shoes. So it looks real pretty. But if you're standing on your toes like that for quite some time, your toes are going to hurt. And I know firsthand from my profession of being a massage therapist, working on ballerinas that are, out of ballet now, they had a lot of foot and hip and low back stuff. So though during the time it's like fun and it's beautiful and all that, the long-term effect is pretty harsh. And so I picked ballet because it is a female dominated profession. And not only is it female dominated, but it is particular and it is rare. And we're going to get into, because there are ballet companies that are more open and less stringent as far as what is expected of the female body, specifically the melanated female body, but also the pale female body. Okay. And so I wanted to bring this up because I feel like this is a good example of what can get missed by those of us who see the privilege of pale people, because this is a system that has a lot of privilege around it, but in that particular privilege, the autonomy and the authority of the female is not included. Okay, you get a lot of dictation by males. A lot of the companies were owned by males, and also the trainers were males. And it was expected that you would be extremely thin. A lot of women would lose their menses, they would stop having it, and all kinds of other things would happen. And so I feel like this is a really good example of where patriarchy comes in, still creates separation, but still has a control and a suppression of the female autonomy. Okay. And as I said before, if you are, even if you are not a ballerina and you are a dancer, you know the extreme time and exhaustion that can happen with the body. Okay, let's see here. Nikki P says, I love ballet and ballerinas. They are mental and physical warriors. Absolutely, 100%. The fact that it's patriarchal art makes so much sense, doesn't it? I didn't even really put that together until today, because most of the ballet that I've seen, not only, so I came in, I came looking at ballet with a little bit of bias, because I rarely saw anybody that looked like me or had any kind of different body than something like tall and lanky. And then recognized, wait a second, like this is it is, I consider discriminatory when it comes to the melanated body. Also, how suppressive it can be for those who have been selected to be a part of ballet, especially when it comes to like famous people. Okay. So I gave you a little bit of history of where it came from. And okay, and then so Louis the 14th, he made it like a state, um, I guess class, you can say. Let me see here. Give me a moment. This is sometimes when I go live, I feel a little unorganized because I have all this information. I'm like, hold on, let me find it. So, okay. Um, here are some of the things that also came. So the idea of being strong but not being too muscular was part of the status. But so here we go. Early court dance was not ballet as we know it today. Like I said, it was kind of like that fancy heels. And I just picture, like, the men with stockings and they had those like buckle shoes. And then the ladies had the dresses and they also had like little heels. That is where it originated from. And then it back then it was like grounded, circular, communal. It emphasized processions, spirals, and weight. Weight was not something that had to be like super thin, and it had a closer relationship to folk, African, Moorish, and Mediterranean movement vocabularies. Or so you would see a lot more hip movement back then, oftentimes a lot of bowing and such. If you've seen those period movies or shows where they go into that dress and that kind of culture, okay, you have a little mental idea. And it was performed by women and men, but mostly of certain status. Then during the turning point when Louis the 14th kind of added like a military idea around the body of who was doing ballet. He was also known as the Sun King. I don't know if you guys knew that. I just learned that tonight. Louis the 14th was also known as the Sun King, and he institutionalized ballet in the 1600s. Dance was removed from communal and ritual and placed into state control. And then what was created was called the Académie Royale des Danses, which is the Royal Academy of Dance, formed in 1661. And they formalized the technique that we see today. And ballet became a disciplinary technology, not just an art. This is when like upright posture, the verticalness, the turnout, which I mentioned already, and then very codified positions. This is why in ballet there are different positions, right? Plie, those type of things. Okay. And then this was also the time of what is called scientific racism. Okay. So you would see scientists coming up with reasons why the melanated body or the melanated person, women specifically, were given all these scientific BS things to have them be excluded, basically, right? So the ballet technique became a way of saying this is controlled and this is superior, and you guys get to do it and you guys don't get to do it. All right. So it was kind of like a quiet exit of the melanated bodies in dancing and the melanated nobility. And it became more, you could say, like um, aesthetically segregated is the best way to say that. All right. So instead of like the grounded, rhythmic, pelvic, circular movement, that was considered undisciplined, too sexual, and excessive. So the more finite and kind of labeled demure is a word we use today, was considered to reflect nobility. Okay. So more melanated, and especially with the textured hair, this was considered visually not acceptable. All right. And science, fake science backed it, or pseudoscience backed it. Okay. So again, this is where you could see some big differences between the paler female bodies being accepted and the melanated bodies being less accepted, because the melanated bodies were muscular and had thicker form, so to speak, expressed rhythm and emotional readability. So a lot of people that I know that are into music and into dancing feel the music. It's not something that is specifically taught. They feel the rhythm of the music. And I'm not saying that that is specifically for brown people, but that is something that is noticeable and then was muted within ballet. Okay. So the female body was revered, but then contained. So, yes, we want females in this, but they have to be a certain weight, they have to be a certain look, and they had to have the idea and the capability of extraordinary endurance, strength, pain tolerance, and precision. This was like required, okay? But historically, they were still owned. They were still owned by the system. They were still owned by whoever kind of brought the dance to people. So choreographers, patrons, and financiers were predominantly male. And female virtuosity was celebrated only when obedient and aestheticized. And this is something we still see today. There's a lot going around now around kind of another wave of um, weight loss and being very thin, even if it is not the best for your body in the long run. Okay. And I do think that there is that's on purpose to have us as women judge ourselves, where in nature, and when you're dancing and you're feeling good, it doesn't matter what you look like as long as you're feeling good and you're not hurting yourself. But within the ballet structure, that is not what is uplifted, really. It's changed a lot, but it wasn't always that way. So ballet became a female power without female authority. So females were dominated in it, but they weren't the ones always choreographing. They weren't the ones owning the ballet schools and techniques, so to speak. These were all controlled by males. And you see this like submissive and non-threatening. And so you see this also again today with like the trend I was talking about, like submissive and unthreatening, right? Like the petite, small, thin, frail, demure or docile. I don't want to say demure, docile type of um, attitude, so to speak. All right. And not just the attitude, but the body to match it. This is where the aesthetics came in to match that. So if you don't know, I, there are several, oh, let's see here. Okay. Yeah. So when I got to college and started or continued my like theater and performing arts studies along with my anthropological studies, one of the books we had to get and read was called The Black Dancing Body. So if you don't know about Catherine Dunham, she is a well-known melanated great mother, as far as I'm concerned, that really pushed past the boundaries of what ballet had expected. She would dance often barefoot, and she was ballet trained, but she wasn't always picked to dance in what is considered like famous ballet pieces. And what she brought with ballet is just beautiful. She brought in her own anthropologic studies, her own natural connection to rhythm. She also linked her emotions in the dance. I mean, she was incredible. And also, like, danced well into her 60s, I believe. So, that is one fairly well known melanated great mother who wasn't considered like a classical ballerina, but was trained in ballet and utilized it in her dance. Okay, so and what happens or what happened with that is like she helped to break the containment theory around ballet, what ballet was supposed to look like. Okay. So if you get a chance, if you're interested in ballet, there's her, and then there's also Alvin Ailey's dance company, which you might also be interested in because, wow, Alvin Ailey's dance company is predominantly melanated people and very female uplifting. Okay. So those are kind of, I'm going to get a little deeper into that in just a moment, but let's see. Okay. So why ballerinas are still mostly women and why that matters. Ballet keeps women at the center because women bodies are seen as naturally expressive, yet women are expected to be managed, corrected, and shaped. We still see that in a regular world today. This mirrors the patriarchy, the colonialism, and even religious body control, where you get the kind of Puritan, um, you know, interweavings of what a female body is supposed to look like and do. Okay. So the ballerina is a priestess form that was like stripped of her temple. Her power remained, but her sovereignty did not. So this is why I'm bringing this up for Female Reverence Sunday, because let's talk about these amazing females. Okay. Today we see women are reclaiming authorship. Melanated dancers are refusing erasure. They are like, hey, we also are ballerinas and we can also perform and we can also be beautiful we are beautiful without the colonizers or the patriarchal aesthetic kind of cap on what these ballerinas are supposed to look like. And this is where it didn't really fail melanated bodies because of dance itself. It failed melanated bodies because of the kind of supremacist idea of what beauty and art were supposed to look like, specifically in the history. Like I said, today it's much different. We see so much more dance and so much more inclusivity of all types of bodies. I mean, today's dance is like rad. Okay, so I'm going to tell you about Catherine Dunham. As I said, she was not a traditional European ballet dancer, but she was trained in ballet, and she was one of the most important dancers in the world, in world history. Melanated, she was an anthropologist as well. She studied Caribbean, African, and African diasporic movement. And as you know, I've learned that me and many others have learned that we are from here. But when it comes to accessibility, we were given access to something that the colonizers told us we were allowed to have access to. But we all know that a lot of dance and rhythm comes from our culture that goes way back, and it doesn't necessarily link specifically to Africa. But this is where she was at, and this is where a lot of us were at, especially many years ago. But she also explicitly analyzed how the melanated body moves differently, the spine, the groundedness, and the rhythm. And she created what is called the Dunham technique, which is still taught globally. Okay. Directly challenged ballet's vertical restrained aesthetic by recentering embodied power, which is predominantly in the hips. She often taught in college programs under the Black Dancing Body, Dance Anthropology, Somatic Memory, and the African Diasporic Technique versus European Ballet. Okay. So she deliberately interfaced ballet with ballet on purpose, and she exposed how ballet stripped movement of ancestral memory. She proved melanated bodies were not just unsuited, they were systematically excluded. Okay. She didn't try to assimilate. She outgrew it and reframed it. All right. So again, Catherine Dunham, amazing, 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 great mother. Okay, now here are some others as far as melanated great mothers go in the classical ballet system. So there's Raven Wilkinson. She was one of the first Black women in a major ballet company. Ballet Rosé de Monte Carlo was the ballet company she was in. She faced extreme racism and threats in the Jim Crow South, and her story is devastating, but also important. She was also amazing, great mother. And then we have Janet Collins. She was the first melanated prima ballerina in the Metropolitan Opera. She refused roles that required blackface. So even in ballet and certain theater, they still required blackface. It just anyhow. And she was a quiet revolutionary. Then there's Misty Copeland, which might be a little bit more familiar for a lot of us. She is the first melanated female principal dancer at the American Ballet Theater. She was she publicly disrupted ballet's racial mythology and reframed what classical even looked like. Then we have Michaelina de Prince. She was a Sierra Leonean born. She survived war and displacement, and she also became a principal ballerina. And she challenged colorism and body stereotypes. Okay. What we're always going to, so again, so these were melanated great mothers of dance who disrupted this Louis the 14th kind of predicted ballet. All right. Now, we also have some non melanated ballet dancers that I wanted to bring in because it isn't about um, melanated or not melanated. This is, again, this is about females and the importance of us and our reverence and our authority within these type of structures. Okay. So, um, the one dancer I wanted to mention as I was talking about the Nutcracker is because when I was little, I had watched the Nutcracker on TV with Mikhail Baryshnikov. And so during this time, it was during what it was actually the end of the Cold War, and a lot of people were defecting from the Soviet Union, especially those who were very good at dance. Mikhail Baryshnikov, I believe, was one of them, and so was one of the leading ladies during that time. Okay, so she was Natalia Makarova, and she was a Russian Kirov ballet. She danced extensively with Mikhail Baryshnikov, famous for the Nutcracker, specifically and Gazelle and Swan Lake. And she defected from the Soviet Union in 1970, and she became an American ballet theater star. And she was important because that was a period of like the harmful body culture. During the 1960s to the 1980s, the classical ballet world was the height of extreme thinness and aesthetic mandate, rigid control of women's bodies, repetitive, punishing rehearsal schedules, and little concern for dancers' long-term health. It was accepted. Like if you could dance, well, then you just kept dancing. It didn't matter if you were faint or feeling ill, or if you had stopped having your menses. Okay, they did not care. And what's new? I mean, some things have changed, but not much has changed around how women are treated around their bodies and what they're expected to do. So also body dysmorphia, or what is also known, or one of those is also called anorexia. So anorexia became a control crisis during that time in ballet. So disordered eating was normalized and often encouraged quietly. Pain was reframed as discipline. I mean, I feel like, anyways, you understand why I'm talking about this, okay? Exhaustion was considered proof of devotion. Oh my gosh, this just sounds like every day for so many women. Injuries were ignored, and so when you stop having your menses, it's called amenorrhea, which is basically stop having your menses, and that was also dismissed. Okay. Many women were told if you can still dance, you're fine, even though they weren't. Bone density loss, hormonal disruption, chronic injury, and lifelong eating disorders followed many dancers into adulthood. Okay. So another famous um, great mother of light skin was Margot Fonteyn. She is from the United Kingdom. She was a royal ballet icon, celebrated for fragility and restraint, endured chronic pain quietly, and was idealized as the perfect ballerina. Let me see here. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Darlene. Thank you for saying that. Thank you. Okay, and then we also have Gelsey Kirkland. She is from the USA. She was also American Ballet theater star. She also danced with Mikhail Baryshnikov, but she later spoke openly about anorexia drug addiction, and emotional abuse as a dancer. And she has a memoir. So if you all are interested, you can check that out. You even just get a little information around her memoir. It's heartbreaking. I mean, when you go into what happened, I get emotional. Like when I was doing this research, I started getting emotional because I love dance. I love ballet, and I like us ladies. I think women are amazing. And to know what we have gone through in our jobs, and especially in the performance arts, I mean, oh my gosh. Okay. Then there's Salive Guillaume. She's from France. She was also an extraordinary technical power. She later rejected ballet's control system. She left classic ballet early and became outspoken about body autonomy. Okay. So and then I want to get into Alvin Ailey. But we bring this in because even non-melanated ballerinas were harmed by the system that feared female power. Okay? Because man, the way, for me, I don't know about y'all, but when I watch dance, it moves me. Like I am moved by dancers, and it can be anything from hip hop to ballet. I mean, I am just like, wow. And the body, the actual human body, what it's capable of. I mean, I don't know if you've seen some of these more modern dancers. Wow. And they're not necessarily always classically trained. Okay. So that's pretty cool. All right. So all of this comes back to like control of the female body, fear of the embodied authority, especially when it comes to melanated mothers and great mothers, aesthetic over well-being, right? Like you look good, but we don't care if you're falling apart on the inside and your body's falling apart. Like who cares? Just keep dancing. Aesthetic, oh, I already said that. And obedience over reverence. So they were revered because they were amazing dancers, but their authority and their autonomy was basically stolen from them. Oh yeah, I love music too. Darlene Moore says exactly, me as well, as far as dancing. And she says I love music. I love music too. I love all different forms of music. And it is like and even dancers who don't use music, like the first time I saw somebody who was dancing to no music, I was like, what? But over the years, I find that also pretty amazing. Like whatever you're hearing in your mind or whatever you're feeling, it just comes out expressively in dance. I think that is really, it's just, I think beautiful is an understatement. It's empowering. It's creative and imaginative, like all of it. It's just, I love it. Okay. So we're going to get a little bit into Alvin Ailey. If you haven't checked out Alvin Ailey, I'm going to say it again. Check it out. I'm pretty sure there's some videos on YouTube that you can find, and probably some other places, because obviously they don't do like whole shows all the time for free, but you can get a taste of the music, the lighting, and the bodies that are performing. And so Alvin Ailey, a little later than Catherine Dunham, created the Alvin Ailey, let me get this right, because it's 3 A's, Alvin Ailey Advanced Dance Company. Give me a moment. Okay, hold on. Let's see. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, AAADT. I think it is. Alvin Ailey, I think it's Advanced Dance Company. Let me see here. Yeah, and when I was in college, we did a mock of one of his dances. Like we did the best we could to come up with and create Revelations, which is, I'm getting emotional talking about it. which is based around, especially in the 1960s, the emotional expression of what was happening to the melanated people during that time. Okay, so a lot of it has to do with, oh, who is that? So Darlene Moore says, yes, we had Garth Fagan where I live. Who is that? Do I need to look that up? Or please feel free to share. I will look it up. I will look it up. I mean, if you don't, if you don't know exactly, why can't I find the full name? Okay. Why is it not telling me the full name? Am I just, is it Alvin Ailey founded AAADT for a very specific reason. Okay, let me make sure of that. Yeah, Alvin Ailey, here we go. Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. And he founded that in 1931. And Catherine Dunham was around 1909. Well, not 1909, but around the same time, even though he was a little older, Alvin Ailey, what he did was kind of bring this together. So he was born in Texas. He was raised in the Jim Crow South, and he came of age amid segregation, church culture, and survival. And he trained in modern dance, ballet, and theatrical movement. And yeah, theatrical movement is really interesting because you will find, okay, I'm going to look it up. Let me look that up. So I'm going to look him up before we get off. Just even though it's Female Reverence Sunday, that's okay because we want it. Dance in general has a lot of female, bodies in it. So trained in modern dance, and he was deeply influenced by Catherine Dunham and Lester Horton and the Black spiritual traditions, or melanated spiritual traditions. And he founded his company in 1958 in New York City. And he did that on purpose because Black dancers, melanated dancers, were being trained but not given space to be fully human on stage. They were very limited, and this is part of this conversation. So at that time, ballet and modern companies were overwhelmingly pale. Black and melanated dancers were expected to assimilate or disappear. Melanated experience was considered too specific for universal art. Yeah, that just brings me back to the other video I did. It's like, man, it's so amazing how stifled and silenced and suppressed the peoples have been for so long. It's just, it's heartbreaking. Okay. Anyways, he rejected anything like too specific for universal art. He was very inclusive, and he was very inclusive with also finding and bringing in female dancers. So not only did he create a place for himself, but he created a place where what is female dominated, he brought that in as well. Okay. He centered emotional truth, ancestral memory, community, spiritual endurance, and the dignity of lived experience. Okay. So he blended modern dance, ballet training, the African diasporic movement, church-based embodiment, groundedness and lift, pelvis, spine, breath, and rhythm. And so you see that a lot in so many like healing and health spaces. And I was going to say, when it comes to the dance kind of movements and areas of the body, if you go into massage or you go into Pilates, you end up learning those same dance spaces. It is kind of universal around how the body movement is, like what's in front of you, what's behind you. I'm using simple words. When you get into dance and you get into massage, they use more technical words. But I had learned dance and those terms in dance, and then went into massage, and I was like, hey, I already know this. I learned this in dance. So that was pretty cool. And that's that just ties into how little we know about bodies, like how little we're taught about bodies anyways, and movement. Okay. And with Alvin Ailey's work, unlike ballet's repression of weight, Ailey's work used gravity, honors muscularity, allows emotion to move visibly through the body, and treats the body as a vessel of memory, not just an object. And this is why the dancers look so powerful and they're not hiding their strength. Okay. Now, women in Alan Ailey's American Dance Theater are visibly strong, emotionally expressive, sexually sovereign without being objectified or put into a box, and leaders of narrative, not just decorative figures. So that was another thing. And we are seeing that not just in the melanated dance theaters, we are starting to see that within the more pale dance theaters as well. Like everything is included. It's not so limited as it used to be. And things around weight and the body are being less specified. You still see it, but it's much more free today than it used to be. Okay. And then great mothers in these particular dance companies were honored, and their power was uplifted, not silenced or softened. Okay. So he, or his dance company to this day, still tours globally, is one of the most respected dance companies in the world, trains dancers of all backgrounds, and preserves melanated culture memory through movement. And importantly, it is proved that excellence does not require erasure. And this is across the board, especially for the great mothers. Okay. Now, before we go, I'm going to ask about Garth Fargan and see what comes up. Wow, these videos, man, I feel like I just started. What? I feel like I just started. I was like, okay, I gotta get all this information. Okay. Oh, Garth Fagan. Sorry. I added an R. All right, Darth Fagan. Um, so he is also an important bridge figure, and he is Jamaican born. He was born in 1940. A dancer, choreographer, and teacher, trained in modern dance and ballet, and the founder of the Garth Fagan Dance Company in Rochester, New York. I guess it's a little hint of where you might be coming from, C-Star. Okay, a longtime collaborator with Alvin Ailey, and he won a Tony Award. And his lineage matters because he sits between Dunham and Ailey and in between ballet and liberation. So thank you so much for bringing him to my attention. He understood classical technique deeply, refused ballet's emotional suppression, refused the erasure of African diasporic movement, and demanded full-bodied presence. His dancers are known for extreme strength, deep grounding, physical musculature, emotional intensity, and precision without frailty. So another kind of somebody who rejected what, yeah, I was just saying, he was another person who rejected the demand for sameness, because that is something else you will see in ballet. Is like everyone has to look the same now. I got to be like the same size. No. And the denial of weight and gravity and ballet's patriarchal aesthetics of control. He rejected this. All right. He famously trained dancers with rigorous discipline, brutal honesty, and total body awareness. It is said that some dancers found him intimidating, But the difference is he was not trying to shrink them. He was trying to wake them up. Okay. And then he choreographed The Lion King. I didn't know that. I did not know that. So that comes from an African inspired movement, and he refused a Western animal realism. He used spiritual articulation, the pelvis, and grounded stance, and he put ancestral presence on the Broadway stage. Millions of people experienced non patriarchal movement language without being told that's what it was. Okay. And then females in his work, uh, women in Garth Fagan's choreography are powerful and not decorative. They use their full weight and strength, are not required to appear delicate, and they were able to command space rather than float through it. Their bodies are respected as intelligent instruments. I love that statement, not as aesthetic objects. Okay. So, this is where I wanted to bring in, I want to give reverence to the female dancers of ballet because, like so many professions that we are told about, thank you. That's awesome. A lot of kind of what we are taught and told about around, actually, I feel like ballet isn't a very popular dance, or it's not as popular as it could be, maybe, but it is definitely a female dominated profession. Okay. And again, we're looking at something where when it's female dominated, it's often not controlled by those who dominate it. Right. And the immense, man, the time and energy required to be these professional dancers is, it's amazing. I'm not kidding you. Like, I think it compares to, if not compares to, might even be a little tighter and higher and harder than most of the athletic um, things like basketball, football, baseball. I mean, these are all very, very popular, but I feel like the training and the discipline is similar for the ballet dancers, those who are in ballet, and that the injuries are, can still be the same, where they can be long term or they show up later, but you will really recognize it within the females that are in the dancing profession. You'll see that a lot, but it is changing. We have these gentlemen that had, and ladies that helped kind of open up what was known around dancing, especially when it comes to melanated bodies and then less melanated bodies, but overall, specifically the female body. Okay, so this was cool. I learned about a whole nother, I'm going to look up some of his work and just note it for myself. Okay, so any questions or comments before I go? I said female reverence. It wasn't fully female reverence, but we do live in a patriarchal world where sometimes guys are still involved, even when we're talking about females. That's all right, though. That's all right. Okay, so before I go, if we don't have any questions or comments, before I go, if anybody wants to ask anything before I go, then I'm going to pull a couple cards from Sacred Mothers and Goddesses. I feel like there was something else. Thank you, dear. Something else I wanted to talk about. Oh, well, it's solstice. We'll talk about solstice real quick before I go. Solstice. So it's solstice, and this was one of the original days that on this side of the planet that we celebrated. So on either side of the planet, it's a celebration. Over here, it's winter solstice. On the other side of the planet, it is spring solstice, right? So, oh, I appreciate that, Nikki P. Right back at you. Um, Thank you. It's always fun to do this stuff because I learn stuff too, you know. Um, so it's a big deal on the other side of the planet because now it's going to start getting warm for them, even though here, like it'll get a little colder. But the days are getting we're today will be or yesterday was the last day of the long nights. We're going to have shorter nights. The moon is in a very crescent form right now, and I can't remember what planet is influenced. Is it Uranus? I think Saturn and Uranus are really kind of kicking in right now. And then we have stories of the hearth going on, so that relates back to the Great Mother. We have Christmas, and I will get into that probably in my next like regular video. I don't know if you all saw the video I did recently around the Tetragrammaton and Devi and Devil, but I also went into Christmas. I'll probably do one around Jesus, otherwise known as Jesus. And so to me, the solstice, not only the sun's soul, the soul relating to the Great Mother, but also this time as far as the days are getting longer again, but it's definitely in a lot of places going to get colder. So I look at that as like a good time to rest, reflect, and utilize things that help us keep warm. Also, a really good time to practice with your elemental gifts because we really do have the mental and elemental ability to shift weather, to shift things. And I know a lot of people, I mean, especially on the West Coast, all over, I can't say any coast in particular, are really struggling around the elements right now, right? So just kind of a recognition of the time of year, solstice. It's one of my favorite holidays. And the celebrations that are coming up around this time of year. And I haven't done any videos around the moon and the new moon and that type of thing recently because just because I've been focused on other things, but recognizing that through that the moon and the studies of the stars, recognizing this time of year in relation to the stars. So if you get a chance, if you live somewhere, because even because I just moved somewhere where it's much more light than where I used to live, Pleiades, Orion, Sirius, many of the stars are still really visible. And that is what we used to go by to kind of recognize what's going on in our area, but also with the Earth's abundance or lack thereof, so to speak. Like the Earth is always abundant, but we use the stars to let us know what time of year it was, what was going to happen as far as weather and migration. And so this is a good time to kind of check that stuff out. And what you might notice now is that that's what I figured when you mentioned that when you mentioned the dancer, and I looked up where he was from, I kind of figured you were in that part of the world. Hopefully you're doing all right, and everyone around you and your family and people are doing all right. But yeah, man, it's I think there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on because weather has ether in it, and I think weather became what is actually ether, and this is their way of dictating the ether to us, but actually we have more influence over the ether. And I think that we used to be taught that by the great mothers specifically. And so this is why I suggest and try to bring in not only the planets and the moons and the stars and stuff, but reminding like we are the energy connected with the planet. It's we there are things we can influence. There are things that we are and the earth is, and we can put that together. And with all of this going on, I definitely think we can influence it. If people listen to this now or later and you're in a certain state where some things are going crazy, maybe check out your elemental gifts and see if you can influence it at all. So I'm just going to mention this before I read this thing. So about 5 years ago, I was living in Oregon still, and there was um, so a lot of the water in, say, like Lake Shasta and some of the other lakes that were pretty full were getting very, very low. So there was this fear of loss of water, right? A drought. And I knew of 25 or more people who were specifically focusing on bringing in some rain. So it was springtime when I had driven down south past Lake Shasta, and I was like, oh my goodness, there's hardly any water in there. And then by that October, it was over by like 7 feet or something like that. I'm convinced that that was us focused on, and not a downpour, but just rain enough to replenish, right? We don't want to overstep Great Mother because she has so much influence that she is the planet also. She has a lot of control over her own self, but also we, it was you, right? So we can, what I think is we check in with the planet, see kind of what's going on, and then move with her. That's how I was taught by her. Like, I can't override her. But I can move with her if she so agrees with it. And so I think that that is something we can do. Absolutely. Darlene says we have more control than we think. I agree. Okay. Thanks for listening to all that. Now I'm going to pull a card or two from the deck of Sacred Mothers and Goddesses. Man, it's been a fun week. I've been reading that Myths and Secrets book. Man, and then little blips of the Great Cosmic Mother. And I also recently got the book 30 Reasons Why Men Deserve Nothing. That's also a fun one. It's really informative. There's some things in there I was like, I hadn't even looked at it that way. So just some side drops of some other great mothers and their writing. All right, let's see here. Hopefully we get a little different person, a little different card this time. Oh, Priestess of the Healing Waters. Interesting. So I can't show. This is always just kind of a basic one. I can't show the whole picture because it shows a lot of her body. So, Priestess of Healing Waters. Okay, and she has the crescent moon above her. What I can't show you because she's basically unclothed is she has a spiral around. I could probably do it like this. Spiral in her womb area. Also the 9, technically, right? Yeah, 9. And let's see, she's also holding a staff. But the description book doesn't really go into anything specific usually. It just kind of um, says things like, I'm going to read it to you. So it's not like the other ones, but we're still going to pull another goddess card specifically. But I feel like that is a recognition of what we can influence. You know, priestess of healing waters. Water represents emotions. It also represents life. We're all created in the womb with water. We come into the world with water breaking or water opening up. And there's so much, like most everything has water in it. Our bodies, how we can influence our bodies with water, um, how we can influence our bodies because they are water. Okay. So I am going to read what it says in the book, but it's not kind of like the other one. So I'm just preparing you. All right. You can change the world. This card holds truth and healing for you and yours. You have experienced, okay, so we're not going to use that word. You have experienced roughness and have come through time and time again. There are lessons you have learned. You have healed and are healing further as you evolve in this lifetime. You have the power to heal. You can help others by sharing. Together we heal. It is important to be honest with yourself without judgment. The ways we act and react are connected to emotional or physical survival. They are a result of the process we have to go through to reach the point where we can fully transform. Speak and act truthfully, centered in love. Look at your life situation grounded in love. Balance between faith and magic. Be active in your healing and focus on all the good around you with wonder, creativity, and gratitude. You attract the energy you put out. This is what co creation is. Okay, I agree with most of that. All right, I agree with most of that. I think realistically is good. I think it's nice to be realistic and understand that oftentimes, even when what you're feeling is rough that you're going through and like you don't feel balanced and you don't feel, you are like you're making it through that part. You're making it through that part. And it's it's great if you can find gratitude, but sometimes you can be grateful for not being able to feel grateful, right? Like being able to feel is the privilege of life. Really. That's if we were in the spirit realm, we wouldn't be in a material body. The material body is what allows us to feel, right? And so honor how you're feeling. That's what I want to say. Like you don't have if you like don't feel bad if you're feeling bad. Just hopefully you have people around you to support you and remind you that you're loved and that you're important and that part and help you remind yourself that you're important and you're loved. But I just want to say like sometimes we don't always have to be super positive is kind of what I'm saying. All right. All right, and so we're going to look at the card at the bottom of the deck, which is Gaia. Whoa, where's it? Here we go. There we go. Gaia. And I think I've pulled her before, but I feel like it's a good one for today, especially talking around the earth. Gaia, number 10. Oh, and the priestess of healing waters, the number is 37, which also comes down to 10. Look at that. Okay, so, all right. Gaia. All right, let me hold her up. I'm still learning how to like center. on this reverse camera thing. All right. Gaia. In Greek mythology, Gaia or Gaia is the mother goddess, a living being, ever expanding. She presides over the earth and the heavens and its ancestral mother of all life, and is the ancestor mother of all life, including the gods and the goddesses themselves. She is both mother and wife of Uranus, father sky. So I find that interesting. We always come back to like mother and wife. How does, you know how I feel about that part, okay? Just saying. She is the creator of the universe. She is the substance of our own bodies, as ours are the substance of hers. She is the ultimate, the beginning, and the end. Her message: the universe is in constant evolution, and you are part of a bigger story than you can envision. Be proactive in your life experience, be inquisitive, look further than the eye can see. You are evolving each day in a process of spiritual expansion. This goes really well with the last card. Oh, it goes really well. Learn to use your energy to do what you need to do in the world. Spend time with the earth, the sun, the moon, and the stars. Celebrate each moon cycle and each season. Pay homage to the stars and the planets, and we do, that surround you. Pay attention to astrological signs and the weather. What? What? Okay. This is, yeah, this is pretty cool. And remember, you are one with the universe. Learn to overcome the illusion of limits to truly see what the universe is at its core: pure energy. You are here to learn how to harness this unlimited supply of energy, what we were just talking about, to create and grow into eternity. Use the powerful energy of gratitude. Wow, look at that. To change the energetic environment around you. Surround yourself with energy, people, and objects that attract more of what you are in alignment with. Always be in motion. Do not stay stagnant in your plans. Work to move steadily but gently in the direction you want to go. Bam. Wow. And it's like activities and plant a garden, look at the stars, travel. If you're struggling to make a choice, pay attention to how your energy increases or decreases, especially in things that you're interested in. Engage in the energy of Gaia and the planets and help you evolve and expand into all you were meant to be. Each planet has its own energy that governs a day of the week. Those visible to the naked eye are the most potent. Make a daily ritual to coincide with the energy of the day of the 7 days, or the 9 days, because, that's why I went into it. But man, okay, so today is Sunday and it says suggested exercise. So we'll use today. We'll read Sundays because, like you said, boom. All right. So Sunday, invoke the energy of the sun to open up to vitality, truth, kindness, and dreams fulfilled. Light a yellow candle if you would like at your altar. Take this day to rest, reconnect with and it's solstice. Reconnect with yourself and your loved ones. Essential oils to use would be orange, cinnamon, and grapefruit. Also, lemon is a good one, and lemongrass. Okay, that's for Sunday. All right, everybody. That's the Female Reverence Sunday number 10. Look at that. It's the 10th Female Reverence Sunday, and the cards we pulled equal 10. I mean, sometimes it just feels so perfect. You know what I mean? Feels good. All right, so I'm going to do a little singing bowl before I go. So thank you, all of you, for commenting and joining and listening, both tonight during the live and whenever you join. I really appreciate it. If you want a little bit more of my stuff, I'm now on TikTok. You can find me on TikTok under Modern Day Sybil. And I have my Patreon, which you can also check out. And all of my memberships are going to change a little bit to kind of have a base, kind of like give as you can, so that I can share a lot more of the information that I want to share more freely and have like a kind of like a more free exchange, so to speak. Okay. My pleasure. Thank you. All right. Until next time, may the Great Mother be with you. See you till the next time.